DSNesmith's The Age of Wings and Steel. Read by Strangest Amethyst. Chapter 8. Ultimatum. Celestia's inexhaustible patience had finally been exhausted. The council, despite being given a day to work itself out, was still unable to come to any sort of agreement regarding the Griffins. Tensions had been rising rapidly as Celerity and Blue Blood's positions had finally become ingrained in stone. The only question now was who more provinces would side with. For the 1000th time, she considered simply overriding Blue Blood's complaints and devoting all her backing to Celerity. But every time the thought crossed her mind, she mentally stepped back and forced herself to look at the larger picture. She had to keep Emmett happy, as much as it pained her to see Celerity's disappointed frowns. It was her duty as Princess of Equestria to keep the nation unified against the threat of Griffin aggression. The councillors had begun raising their voices. The council session was rapidly degenerating into a shouting match. "Helm fast, you idiots! We can't do nothing and hope the Griffins just go away! I see no reason to antagonise them with an army, Lord Weatherforge. I can think of 30,000 reasons!" Celestia massaged her aching temples with a hoof. "Councillors, do I need to call in more guards?" Today the throne was guarded on both sides by a pair of fire wings. She had hoped, clearly mistakenly, that the presence of the golden-armoured Pegasi would prove a calming, or at least restraining, influence on the councillors. To her left stood Lieutenant Bergeron, quiet and sturdy-looking as always. On her right, Captain Windstreak was looking as bored as she felt. Celestia felt a pang of guilt. She still hadn't told the captain what her son was doing, and she was sure that Windstreak was worried sick beneath her calm and confident facade. Celestia decided that she would tell the poor mare immediately after this meeting, regardless of the outcome. "Nothing you say will change my mind, Duchess," Emmett scowled. Celerity put a hoof on the table and pointed dramatically. "Either we join our forces to fight the Griffins, or we may as well put on shackles and give ourselves up to them right now. Make no mistake, those are our choices." "I still say we try for peace," said Lord Greenway. "Griffins aren't dumb brutes, they can be reasoned with. We should choose an ambassador." "Why don't we send you?" asked the Count of Westerman venomously. "At least then we'd be rid of your simpering." The council ponies burst, screaming and hurling insults. Celestia resisted the urge to bury her head in her hooves. Why did they have to make this so difficult? She just wanted to help them help themselves. But Emmett and his supporters were blocking every effort of Celerity and the princess to make them see reason. He was not a bad pony at heart, she knew. Emmett might be prideful, brash, and overly concerned with money, but he truly did have Norhart's best interests in mind. His greatest goal was to bring his duchy back into another golden age like the one it enjoyed under his grandfather's governance. She almost pitied him for having to assume the burden of a ruined economy that his father had left him. But his stubbornness was beginning to become a liability. In another 20 years he would be dead or retired, and his son would take his place on the council. But until then she would have to deal with him and his lack of pliability. "I've had enough of this, Emmett!" Celerity was screaming to be heard over the din. "You would rather see the South burn than lift a hoof to help the nation you claim to serve!" "And you would see yourself on the throne, Belle!" Celestia stood and flared her wings. Her horn blazed with magical light. "That is enough!" The council ponies shrank into their cushions. She glared around at all of them. "You are Equestria's nobility. We expect you to act as such!" The Duchess winced. She'd caught that royal "we", and Celerity of all the council ponies would realise how close that meant the princess was to losing her temper. Celestia raised her head and gave another disapproving look around at all of them. "This constant fighting must end if we are to survive the coming storm. I will give you all 1 day. I can delay no longer. We will hold a vote, to gather together and prepare for war, or not. But know this. If we do not muster our forces, the Griffins will sweep north and break us like twigs." She stared at Blue Blood. "Think long and hard before you vote. You have until noon tomorrow. This council is dismissed. Get out." The council ponies practically fled the chamber, cowed by the princess's rage. As the last of their tails disappeared from the doorframe, Celestia sank into her throne as if deflating. Instantly, Bergeron was at her side with a cup of tea. She accepted it gratefully. "Thank you." She drank slowly. "Milady." Bergeron looked worried. "What are you going to do if Emmett and his followers vote against marshalling the armies?" "I don't know," she said blankly. She couldn't think of anything else to say. She took another sip of tea instead. Captain Winstreak took her place next to Bergeron. Is there anything we can do? All of the Firewings are ready to help however we can, Your Majesty. As you always are. Celestia smiled. I have a plan in motion already to bring aid to fight the Griffins, but it will likely be at least a few weeks before it comes to fruition. She drank deeply. And that plan is? I have sent messengers to the Thanes of Sleep Nord. They carry copies of the ancient treaties compelling the Nord ponies to help us. Winstreak gave a low whistle. A couple thousand Nord pony warriors could do a great deal against the Griffins. Your messenger had better have a silver tongue. Who'd you send? Celestia looked glumly at her empty teacup. It had drained far too soon. I sent 2 ponies. One of them is Inga. Winstreak jolted in surprise, then nodded. Logical choice, he's a good pony. Who else? Bergeron, could you get me another cup of tea? Right away, milady. The Firewing took the teacup and left the room. Celestia sighed. Who did you send, Your Majesty? This was going to be difficult. Winstreak, perhaps you should sit down. The Princess has set down an ultimatum. I'm not sure it will be enough. Celerity's horn glowed as she paced about her quarters. Her tiara flew from her head and bounced off the wall. Weatherly caught the headpiece gingerly, laying it neatly on the dresser. Milady, the Princess will make the right decision in the end. You have more faith than I, Weatherly. Blue Blood's influence is strong. If even one councillor votes against war, just one, then Celestia will not help us. Whose votes are you certain of? Westerman, Weatherforge, Breton, and Rivermeet will all vote with me, but Blue Blood and his lot will certainly reject the motion. There's no chance of this vote passing, Weatherly. So, her aide looked lost. What will we do against the Griffins? She heaved a sigh filled with regret. We'll do whatever is necessary to protect the citizens of Whitetail against Grypha. Princess or no. She looked up at the Belle's sigil, her eyes as hard as the diamonds on the tapestry. My bloodline can be traced back to Lady Platinum herself. My family has held this land for over 60 generations. I will not be remembered as the Belle who let Whitetail fall to those mongrels from the south. Celerity bowed her head, closing her eyes. I just pray that the price is not too high. She looked up. Weatherly, prepare a message. She waited patiently as he dug around in her desk for a quill and ink. He laid out a sheet of parchment on the writing table, holding the quill ready. He nodded to her to begin. She cleared her throat. To Baron Burnside Aubrun, General of the Army of Whitetail, Lord of Copperton, etc., fill in the blanks. She waited for the scratching of the quill to cease before continuing. You are hereby ordered to put your troops at full readiness. You are to send 2,500 fighting ponies with as many mages as you can spare to march south. I want them at the Bridge of Trello by Tuesday next week. From there, I will personally assume command of the army and lead them on to Sel Paloth. We'll reinforce the garrison while we wait for Weatherforge and Westermin's troops to arrive. Weatherly paused and looked up. He dropped the quill onto the table to free his mouth. Weatherforge and Westermin? I thought you said the vote wasn't going to pass. Write the letter, Weatherly. The scratching of the quill resumed. You yourself, Baron, will be leading 1,500 ponies in the other direction. I want you on the border of East Hill by Monday. Her aide gave her a confused look. Why East Hill? I want those iron mines. This war is going to strain our already fragile economy to its breaking point. We won't be able to afford to buy steel from East Hill. And since he refuses to join us against the princess's will... Weatherly looked horrified. But, my lady, he choked. That would be treason. Is it treason to ensure my people's safety? Celerity's voice was icy and distant. She stared intently at the diamond crest. Write it down. The quill scratched. I look forward to your report. Sign it Celerity Augustine Belle, Duchess of Whitetail, Lady of the Whitetail Forest, and all the rest of the titles. Then send it out immediately. Don't use a royal courier. Give it to one of ours. My lady. Weatherly sounded desperate. Please. Is there no other way? Unless Blue Blood has a change of heart? No. But think about what you're doing. Think of what this will do to the princess. It's going to break her heart, said Celerity sadly. But the alternative is watching the ponies under my care be slaughtered by the Griffins. And that is no alternative at all. As Weatherly sealed the message and carried it out of the room, she placed a hoof up on the sigil tapestry. Celerity looked up at it, feeling the weight of countless generations of Belles all looking down at her. "I'm sorry, Celestia." She looked into the fire below. "But I do what I must."